This is Keith Hellwig from Cops Corrections Videos. If you like my videos, please hit the subscribe button. Today I want to talk about rookie officers and crusty old veterans. How many of you, when you were a rookie, you came onto the job, you were full of optimism, you were full of hope, you were full of vim and vigor, and then you ran into some crusty old veteran who's been there, done that, and they aren't going to do it again? I'll bet just about every officer out there, whether a correctional officer or a police officer, could point to examples where they run into that. When I think back to when I started in corrections, they didn't even have a formal academy at that time. You took all your training at the institution where you were hired. It was a 6-week course, and then you had 2 weeks on the job training. Well, you trained on each shift with a different officer. Well, when I went on third shift to train with an officer, I had a crusty old fart. His name was Leon. And Leon, I don't know how old he was, but he looked like he was probably a World War I veteran. I went into the unit, and I'm new. I'd never worked third shift before. I had never worked in a prison before. I'd had a couple weeks of training on first shift and second shift. I went into Leon's unit, and he told me, okay, kid, the counts are at noon, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. You make a round every half hour. If you have any questions, wait until 5 o'clock and wake me up so I can have some eggs and toast and coffee. Yet then he actually went into the inmate laundry room and brought out a mattress that he set on the floor of the office with a blanket and a pillow, and he went to sleep. He didn't want to be bothered during the entire course of that shift. Although he did want me to make sure to wake him up at 5 o'clock in the morning so he could have breakfast. That was my run-in with a crusty old veteran. You know, there were others that I ran into that would make, snide remarks, you're going to hate it here, or get out now. And that's one of the problems we have now with the crusty old veterans. And I think that leads to the shortage problem we're having now, both in corrections and police work. It irks me every time I see a picture of a class that graduates from the Corrections Training Center in Wisconsin. They have a different name for it now. I don't know what the politically correct terminology is. But they'll have a picture of 25, 35, 40 people that are graduating from corrections. These are people that are going into badly needed positions. We have some institutions, at least 3 of them that I can think of, that there are at only 60% staff capacity. That means 40% of their positions go unfilled every shift. Yet, you'll see when there's a new class that comes out and they post their picture on the Wisconsin DOC page, you get the crusty old veterans saying, get out now, it's not worth it, you're going to work yourself to death, blah, 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 blah. And then they'll sit back and they'll bitch and moan because there's not enough officers to cover the positions and they have to work double shifts and they have to get ordered on their days off. Maybe if they encourage these officers, instead of being the crusty old fart, been there, done that, maybe these officers would stick around. Maybe if you gave them encouragement rather than talking about how miserable things are all the time, they'd stick around. So how do you deal with the crusty old veteran? When I had to work with Leon, I did not go up to the captain and say, Leon spent the night sleeping, Leon did this, Leon did that. I just went into the captain's office and I asked him, I said, I've worked that unit before. Is there any way I could work, another unit on third shift for the next week so I get used to things, to see how things run? Well, when he looked at the schedule and he saw that I'd been scheduled to work with Leon again, he knew who Leon was. He knew what Leon did, and he put me in another unit. Now, I'm not saying that if you have a bad FTO that you go crying to your supervisor about it. Sometimes maybe if you talk to your FTO about what's going on, they're going to sit back and listen. There are a lot of bad things that we encounter throughout the course of our years, and if we let them form our opinion of our entire career, I guess I could say that I've had a pretty rotten career. I've dealt with rapes, robberies, suicides, you name it. Just a couple years ago in the village I'm in here, I had a 23-year-old man commit suicide. He came home from work, and he and his 19-year-old sister ordered a pizza together. They had a good time. He got done with the pizza, said he had something to do in the garage, and he went and hung himself. Well, that's something that I had to deal with at that time. And if I just dwelt on the negatives of this job, I would hate the job. There's a lot of positives in corrections. There's a lot of positives in police work. Sometimes you just have to look for them. And you have to ignore that crusty old fart who treats every day like he just took a bite out of a turd sandwich. Sometimes you just have to ignore them. I always told new officers when I was a captain to remember that you can learn as much from a bad officer as you can from a good officer. You can learn from a bad officer not what not to do. You can learn from a good officer on how to deal with it. So until next time, this is Keith Helwig from Cops Corrections. Stay safe and watch your back.